Welcome back to Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. We're going to go straight to the phones. We've got Scott Braddock, editor of the Quorum Report, on the phone. Scott, how's your morning going? I'm doing well.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it's Friday, and none of us should really complain. I'm here in Dallas, Fort Worth, checking on some of the races here. I think we are coming down to the wire now. I mean, it seems like the election is still a month off, but the truth is, next week on the 13th, early voting is going to start. And you and I probably have talked about this before. There's not a lot of people who haven't made their minds up yet. We'll see if there's a rush on the polls, on the first day of early voting, and see if that early voting is really front-loaded, if people just go on and make their decision, or if some people wait. I mean, people who like to wait until Election Day. We all know folks like that. I've got one friend who...
Yeah, Chad Hasty says that.
Hasty says he won't vote until
Well,
Election
he
Day.
says that you never know what's going to happen between now and Election Day.
Yeah, and that's what one of my friends was saying as well. That they think there's always going to be, some other development, that makes you potentially change your mind about something. And, this year I could argue it either way. On the one hand, I would say, people are so set that, you've either got the Democrats who are fired up to go vote for Biden, you've got the Republicans who are fired up to go vote for Trump and the Republicans, and so it doesn't really matter, what these October surprises are.
But you have a lot of local elections that are going to be on there. What was that?
Again, Matt?
Oh, I said you've got a lot of local elections that are going to be on the November ballot this time.
Right, and you never know what these latest developments are going to be. And then on the other hand, I was just going to say, hey, it's 2020. No matter what crazy thing just happened, the very next day something even crazier will happen every time. So, you can't say that nothing could possibly happen to change your mind. I don't think.
So I know that this isn't necessarily Texas, but I'm sure you watched the vice presidential debate. In fact,
Sure.
I think they said 50 million people, which is a new record for a vice presidential debate, watched it. Just overall, what were your thoughts on the vice presidential debate?
I thought it was, not quite the food fight that we saw between President Trump and Joe Biden the week before. A little more civil, if you will, although you did have some rule breaking going on. One of the pieces of analysis I saw that I really agreed with and thought was spot on. Matt, you ever watch Frank Luntz, the pollster who appears on Fox News Channel quite a bit? He'll do those focus groups, with undecided voters, and I think it's really just so on point to say that for an undecided voter, the style matters more than the substance. And let me explain that. And this is my paraphrase of what Luntz was saying. For those people who are locked in and they're going to vote for Trump no matter what, or they're going to vote for Biden no matter what, those people, whether you agree with them or not, they have some core values, some reason that they are a Republican or they are a Democrat, and that's why they're going to vote that way. But for those who are undecided, the reason they're undecided is because they don't vote that way. They look at things in the moment and they try to figure out, okay, who's the person I can trust here to do a good job? Who's the person who seems like they know more than the other person? It really ends up coming down more to style for those folks. So the fact that they would, be watching in, huge numbers and trying to figure out who they're going to support, looking at one of these debates, it really does mean, in some ways that we're handing the keys to the car here to the people who don't vote based on, some core values or principles. Instead, they're kind of looking for somebody who they think in the moment they can trust, with the most powerful office in the land.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I find interesting, I guess, is that the polls do swing back and forth. And you can always see, I don't really trust the polls overall, but you watch the trends and different things seem to be affecting it. For example, Donald Trump, when he got COVID-19, I felt like that really caused the trends to go against him. A lot of it probably because of his actions towards the COVID-19.
On that, it seemed like there were a lot of folks who, on the Democratic side, were hesitant to say that the president did that to himself. Biden sort of did a version of that, where he said, if somebody just doesn't wear a mask and won't do social distancing, then what do they expect is going to happen? I also thought on the point about the debates and COVID-19, kind of putting the topics together, after the first presidential debate, you saw polling that showed that there were a full third of Trump supporters, and they still support, they still like President Trump, but a third of them said they disapproved of the way he performed in that debate. They thought he was rude and he shouldn't have acted that way. I actually heard just anecdotally about some people who took down the signs in their yard, the Trump signs after the debate. They're still going to vote for Trump, but they don't want to advertise that to everybody after the way he acted in that situation. So on COVID-19, now that he has it, you see where the Commission on Presidential Debates has said, well, we're going to do this virtually on the next one. The president says he won't do that. And from the reporting I heard this morning, it sounded like they're just not going to have a debate, potentially that, Trump will go off and do some other event, and that Biden has said that he would, still do a debate. But I think his campaign has already set up their own, maybe virtual or otherwise town hall.
Yeah, the last town hall that Biden did really went well with all his preordained questions that he got, but
he was ready to go.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Easy when it's teed up.
Yeah. So there's a few things here going on here in Texas as well. One of the things I was going to ask you, just because I haven't seen anything on it, was the lawsuit about early voting that was going through to, I guess, the Texas Supreme Court. Have we heard anything about that yet?
Supreme Court said that it can stay as it is, that there will be 3 weeks, the way Governor Abbott laid it out originally, when he was trying to thread the needle between the tension of the Democrats who say that everybody who's an eligible voter ought to get a mail-in ballot if they want to vote that way. Republicans don't agree with that. And then on the other hand, you do have those Republicans who said that the governor didn't have the right to just on his own unilaterally change the election laws in Texas, which included expanding early voting in person. You had the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, Alan West, Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, the Harris County Republican Party, I think, was also on that, the GOP down in Houston. They were suing the governor to cut it back to 2 weeks again, but the Supreme Court said no on that. And in the meantime, there was another hearing in a different case about this decision that the governor made on limiting the number of in-person drop boxes for mail-in ballots. And this one gets a little, sort of down in the weeds, but I think there are some people who are maybe in bigger counties, maybe they do have a point. So in Harris County, which is 2,000 square miles, it's a big county, and the most populous county in Texas. They have something like 2.5 million eligible voters there. Some people want to be able to have the option to fill out that mail-in ballot and then go drop it off themselves, because we've heard all this noise out there nationally about, the idea that maybe the postal system would be overwhelmed, and, if you put your ballot in the mailbox, that it won't actually get to elections administrators on time to be counted. So people would just like the option to be able to drop it off without having to go into a crowded polling place. I get that. In Harris County, they said they were going to set up about a dozen of these locations, so people would have it be a little more convenient. Harris County, but one thing interesting about it is because it's so geographically large, it includes suburbs. I'm in Dallas this morning, and Dallas really doesn't. Dallas is pretty urban, and the suburbs are outside of Dallas County, in Collin County, Denton County, down in Ellis County, et cetera. And in Harris County, you have places like Humble, Cy-Fair, Katy, those areas where it could be 40 or 50 miles round trip to be able to go drop that off if there's only one location.
It's a 2-hour drive right there,
Houston,
according to
would
traffic.
Be kind of ridiculous. So these folks wondered why Abbott was doing that. Abbott said it was for voter security, ballot security, election integrity, and all of that. And the federal judge in the case hasn't ruled just yet, but the headline out of the hearing yesterday was basically that federal judge was kind of doubting Abbott's ability to do that. But I will say this, Matt, with all of these questions up in the air legally, that can be very confusing for voters.
I agree.
We have early voting, We have early voting starting next week, as we mentioned. And at some point, people just need to know what the rules are. Remember, there was the case also about straight ticket voting, where the judge down in South Texas had said that straight ticket voting should come back. And then the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans said, no, wait, you can't do that. just now. And the argument that they sided with, it's a pretty conservative court there in New Orleans, the Fifth Circuit, pretty known for being conservative. What they said was you can't go changing the rules of the election so close to the election because people need to know what the rules are so they can just go ahead and have their voices heard.
Right.
And I would tend to agree with that.
So they're not actually saying whether or not Governor Abbott has the authority. What they're saying is you just can't do that right now.
Yeah,
you can't change the rules.
I think there's precedent for that to say that, look, whether he has the authority or not, you don't need to go changing things here. When the Texas Supreme Court ruled against the plaintiffs in the case for cutting back on early voting, one of the things that they pointed to is they said, you waited too long to file this suit. Why didn't you do that right out of the gate if you had this objection? And again, that kind of comes back to that same argument of, look, now the election is getting underway, and we already have military absentee ballots out, so the election's really happening right now already. And so to be changing the rules now, it's just not fair to the average person, and that's true whether the person is a Democrat, Republican, or Independent.
Yeah, Scott, I'm running out of time here. Is there any way that you could stay over one more segment?
Sure, we can do it.
All right. We haven't even talked about Ken Paxton or bars opening or anything. We got a lot to talk about. This is just crazy. All right, we'll be right back with Scott Braddock, editor of the Quorum Report on News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO. Welcome back to Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. Want to get back to Scott Braddock, editor of the Quorum Report. Scott, we one of the big news articles, and I guess what I'm being told, and I don't know a lot of what's going on, what I'm being told about Ken Paxton is don't jump out and just defend him yet. We don't know much about what's going on.
Yeah, and I'll try to make it as simple as I can for everybody, because if you get into all the weeds about this, I mean, it's worth reading all the articles. There's been a lot of good news coverage about it, but I think you hit the nail on the head. You don't see a lot of big Republicans running out to defend the Attorney General on this. The governor said that it was very concerning, and Lieutenant Governor Patrick said it was sort of obviously concerning. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. Neither one of them said anything like this. They didn't say, I can't believe that happened. Right. In other words, they didn't say, wow, I can't believe that he would do that. And the basic accusation is, and I think part of this is, it's who's saying it, Matt. It's not just anybody who said that the Attorney General is committing bribery. It's top staffers in his office. It's as if, everybody, closest to the Attorney General, just threw him under the bus. They, in sort of like a massacre situation politically. Last weekend on Saturday, we got the news that the first Assistant Attorney General and 6 others had signed this letter that accused the Attorney General of bribery, abuse of office, and, quote, other potential crimes, and we're off to the races from there. The Attorney General says that that's not true. He's digging in his heels. He says that he won't quit, but this all stems from an accusation that basically he was doing favors for and, sort of doing things that are untoward for a political donor, a real estate investor in Austin who contributed, as far as we can tell, only about $25,000 to the Attorney General, which to you and me, that's a lot of cigars, but $25,000 for a statewide elected official really isn't that much. I mean, these are guys who have millions and millions of dollars in the bank, but the Attorney General says, again, he's not going anywhere, and those folks who were in his office, they're sticking with their story, it sounds to me like everybody has sort of wisely lawyered up because they're
going to be
investigating.
Who's going to be investigating this? Will it be the Texas Rangers?
It still doesn't seem clear exactly who's going to be looking into this. Texas Rangers would be, one option. I think that there is what the folks in the AG's office who quit. They wanted the federal and the feds, the FBI, folks like that to look into it. There is a report that came out yesterday that the Attorney General had asked the prosecutor in Travis County, the Democratic District Attorney, to look into federal investigators for the investigators to investigate the investigators. So this is all getting very strange, very fast. Now, how does this impact, the larger political situation? I think we should say a few words about that. One, I do think that in a limited basis, it does have some impact in some of these Texas House races because there are some Republicans who can be tied directly to Ken Paxton, and you might see some very close races, particularly here in North Texas, where I'm talking to you from today, especially in Collin County, where Ken Paxton is from. Some of his very good friends and allies are Texas House members who are in Collin County, and they have tight races. And then the other thing I would say is that maybe it doesn't have as much to do with this year politically, but it could line up to mean some very substantial things for the next election in 2 years when the Attorney General would be on the ballot. If let's say he gets forced out, let's just game it out for a second, Matt. If he has to resign, or he's convicted of something, then of course the governor would have to appoint a new attorney general, and then the governor could also pick, somebody to be on the Supreme Court if he chooses a Supreme Court justice, which is what some folks are thinking. That he might pick, Eva Guzman or one of the other Supreme Court justices to fill the attorney general seat. Then he gets a twofer there. He'd get to also appoint a new person for that. Member of the Supreme Court,
okay,
and that
Scott,
means that the governor would be in position.
We're out of time. I apologize.